Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the El Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is called to order, and I will ask our Deputy City Clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Kendrick is absent. All others are present.
Would you all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then after the pledge, remain standing for a brief moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the January 10th, 2023 meeting and the agenda of the January 24th, 2023 meeting in accordance with state law, city council, and housing authority policy. We have two presentations on today's agenda. The city manager will tell us about the first presentation for Chief Coe.
Thank you. Is Chief Coe here? There he is. Chief Coe, come on down. So, Ben Coe has been a division chief for the Heartland Fire and Rescue for the last, how many years, Ben? Last 4 years. And as Chief Swaney retired, the city managers that represent Heartland Fire got together, and we did an interview with Chief Coe. And we were impressed with him before, but after talking to him, we're even more impressed. And from that interview, we offered him the chief job. Typically, you're used to swearing in fire chiefs, but Chief Coe actually is an employee for the city of La Mesa. As you recall, we rotate those around. So he had his official swearing in at the city of La Mesa City Council meeting. But I wanted to present him here today. I'm just going to say one thing about him. Then I'll let him say a few things. When I went on a visit, the assistant city manager and I did something called the Value and Cultures Tour, where we went and talked to small groups of city employees throughout the entire city. We talked to every single employee in groups of about 10. And as we made our rounds in the fire department, I just said, how's it going with upper management, right? And over again, I heard our fire staff so grateful for Chief Coe and his communication and just being receptive and wanting to hear what the concerns are and communicating back and making sure everyone is in the know. And I'm really appreciative of that because it's something that's an important value that we have with our executive team, and he fits in well with our team. So with that, I just wanted to formally introduce Chief Coe to not only the council, but also to the community. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm extremely humbled and honored and to be trusted with the safety and well-being of our communities, our citizens, and lives of men and women of Heartland Fire and Rescue. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate this. Any questions?
Well, congratulations first, and I have to tell the public that a long time ago, before I was on city council, Chief and I were in the same leadership class through the East County Chamber of Commerce. And once a month for about a year, we'd get together and we would go around and learn about different aspects of East County. Voluntary program. I think we actually had to pay in order to go through it. And I got to know him very, very well, and he got to know me. This was before, I guess, we hit the big leagues up here. But, yeah, thank you for, the fact that you did that program voluntarily to get to know your community on top of all your other responsibilities shows your character and your type of dedication to this community, just East County as a whole. So I think excellent job choosing. Thank you very much. And we're looking forward for you to take the helm as you already have and continue to lead our department. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Just welcome, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a presentation about Teddy, the ECPD wellness dog, and I think Sergeant Murphy's here to tell us about Teddy.
Mayor Wells and City Council members, it has been a year since Teddy has first came to the El Cajon Police Department as part of our wellness unit. Since that time, Teddy has worked over 1,000 hours, providing comfort not only to our employees at the police department, but at City Hall, Public Works, and our local schools. Teddy has provided assistance to the investigators by sitting on interviews, most notably during a DA interview of an autistic child who was a victim of sexual assault. He sat with the child for over an hour, never moving while she provided her statement. The DA who had spoken to this victim previously could not believe how Teddy had made her calm and how she was able to articulate what had happened to her. None of this, though, would be possible without the assistance of Teddy's owner, Patricia Dipsey, who's here today, founder of Love Heals Canine Partners. Last year, I was approached by ECPD staff members asking how we could get a dog like the fire stations. Yes, once again, we were trying to be like the fire department. Only having knowledge about police dogs and how to make them bite, I started to do some research about facility dogs. Through that research, I met Patricia through my wife's coworker, and after speaking with Patricia a few times on the phone, she proposed the perfect deal for us in our city. She had Teddy, who was trained and insured, and a facility dog that needed to work. Patricia wanted to donate his services to us free of charge. A dog like Teddy could cost in excess of $20,000 to train, not to count yearly vet fees, food, insurance, and other maintenance items. So I proposed this to Chief Moulton, who quickly approved the use of Teddy, and the rest is history. He has become a part of the El Cajon family, and we just wanted to thank and recognize Patricia for her support to the city and our department. And she's here today, so thank you very much for the support that you've given us.
Thank you, Patricia. It's really nice of you to let us use the dog like that. I'm sure the police department really appreciates that. You know, dogs, they really appreciate working, don't they? How neat. Thank you so much. All right, agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
No, sir.
How about council? We're at consent items now. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you want to pull any of the consent items?
I don't need to pull, but I'll just make a comment on number 5 when the time comes.
Staff, do you want to pull any of the consent items?
No, sir.
Go ahead, Steve.
You know, number 5, the staff report really told a much better story that the Public Works Department routinely has a schedule of camera inspecting our sewer system. And through that regular program, they were able to find 2 locations in which there was some kind of break or leak in the pipe. And there was a moisture in the dirt around the pipe. And so as a result, they were able to quickly identify these 2 breaks in the sewage before they became sinkholes, which would be the next logical step in sewage just going straight into the ground and not through the pipe. So the fact that it only cost us $80,000 to repair probably could have been $250,000 or more had there been a sinkhole. So the taxpayers should know our Public Works Department is really on the ball on this public sewer inspection program.
Boy, preventative maintenance is so much cheaper than fixing a problem. Thank you, Steve. Good.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent calendar items.
Second.
All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Thank you. You know, I didn't ask you, Jen, did we have any comment cards for consent items?
No comment cards were received for this.
Thank you. We're now at public comment. This time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority Successor Agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that's not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Jen, do we have any speaker cards for public comment?
Yes, we have one speaker card from Kevin Klein. You can come up to have your speak.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Nice to meet you all. My name's Kevin. I don't think I need to speak into that because I'm a pretty loud speaker.
Actually, if you wouldn't mind speaking into it, we're actually on TV, and
Okay, how's
it's-
that? I'll try to tone it down a little bit.
probably good enough. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. My concern is, first of all, I'm Kevin Klein. I've lived in El Cajon for 32 years or more. I've owned my house for 31. I live over off of Bradley and Woodburn, next to the charter school right there, and that's what I've come to discuss. The school has been there since 2001. It's a great school for what I've read, and what my kids never went there, but I raised 3 children through the public schools in El Cajon, so I have a little knowledge on it. What I'm here to really speak about is the safety of those children, okay, and the people around that neighborhood. Okay, Bradley is a 35-mile-an-hour street. The cars have to stand in line to go pick up their children. They like to use Woodburn and Pepper Villa as drop-off and pickup points, which is very unsafe. Cars have to pass on the right to get around these cars, and it's really not a safe thing to do. We can't get in or out of our streets, and you know, at the different times of days when the school is picking up and letting off. And back in 2001, and when this school started, it literally was a school for maybe 300 kids, and then they've expanded. They've got more buildings. They've gotten bigger. So I'm asking the city council to look into maybe 25-mile-an-hour speed zones now, and keeping our streets clear so we can get in and out of our streets and not have to wait for the 30 minutes for the traffic to clear. It doesn't seem fair to us, and I pay a lot of taxes. I've paid a lot of taxes in this city. And I'm just begging that, because there's been even confrontations with some of my neighbors, myself included, that people parking in our driveway, we can't get in or out of our driveway because they're dropping off or picking up their children. So again, it's just not safe. And I've asked that principal, and I'll close with this, to, you know, look into, they were letting the kids just walk on their own home. And I made them know it wasn't even supposed to be that type of school in the beginning. It was supposed to be you drop your kid off, you pick them up inside the school grounds. Now it's a whole different ball game. So I'm looking at it, and I'm begging you guys, before a kid gets hurt or even killed, that we do something about it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Let me see if there's any questions for you. No. Graham, do you think that we can work with the school to try to develop a safety plan that might make sense for the neighborhood?
Certainly, we can analyze it. We've done this in the past. I know with Chase Elementary, there was a problem, and we looked at it, and our traffic engineers suggested a different route for pickup and drop off, and it seems to be doing better. I mean, one of the challenges that the resident brings up is frankly, one that exists in every single community, in every city in the United States, because every school that is designed at least more than 10 years ago, which is every school in our city, was designed with the thought that 90% of the kids would be walking to school. And as we know, 90% of the kids are now dropped off in a car to school. And it doesn't matter whether it's a high school in Chula Vista or an elementary school in El Cajon. Every community is facing this as an issue. So being efficient is really important. So we'll look at it from a traffic engineering perspective. We'll look at for some safety opportunities as well. We'll work with the school and see if there's some opportunities there.
Excuse me. I am familiar with that. I live around the corner from you. So I live right off Mollison, and I do see that, and I am sensitive to the issue because we can't get out of our cul-de-sac on Mollison during those times. So, feel free to reach out to me if you need any help in getting the issue resolved, and I'd be more than happy to come out and talk to someone if they need to. But I am aware of that situation, and I have family members that live on Bradley right there, catty corner from the school.
Yeah, if there wasn't a back way into our property, we couldn't even get into our property.
Right.
So
And I know it's very limited right there because you have Pepper and you have First, but, it's nothing goes all the way through. So feel free to reach out if you need some additional help.
Well, I'm also worried about the people passing on the right-hand side of the cars
Right.
that are zooming, doing 30, 35. All it takes is somebody to open a door that's parked over there, done. They're done.
Well, hopefully, when they start that widening project on Bradley, hopefully, I don't know when that's going to happen, but there's going to be, the traffic will be a little bit more regulated because there will be stoplights there. But as you know, that's been a project working for quite some time.
That is true. It's been forever and a day. And all I'm thinking of is, I'm not even sure that the individual that controls the traffic, which is the principal, has literally been through a traffic safety course that, I've seen him yell at people. So, obviously there's something not going right.
Well, I think the city manager will be able to facilitate something for you. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
You might want to leave your phone number with the staff so they can get hold of you.
Of course.
Thanks. And listen,
Welcome. Thank you.
if this doesn't resolve your issues, come back and visit us again.
I'll be back.
Okay.
I just kind of like the process.
Oh, good. Was there anybody else?
No other speaker cards, sir.
There are no written communications on today's agenda, and we have no public hearings on today's agenda. We have 6 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 6 is the Downtown El Cajon Business Partners Annual Report. I'd like to ask our city manager to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This item is actually a carryover from December 13th City Council meeting, and it's a presentation of the annual report of the Downtown El Cajon Business Partners. For some background information, back in 2011, the city approved a management agreement between the city and the Downtown El Cajon Business Partners to implement and manage the programs and activities that are funded through an assessment district that property owners in the downtown jurisdictional area pay. As part of that management agreement, the partners are to present an annual report once a year for City Council consideration and approval, and then also are there to present budgets and audits. And so at this afternoon's meeting, Ms. Kathy Zeman and Steve Fitch from the Downtown El Cajon Business Partners are here to present the annual plan and to answer any questions that the City Council may have about it or about the most recent audit, which is included in the staff report, as well as a quarterly profit and loss statement from July through September 2022. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Ms. Zeman, and then at the end, I'll conclude with some remarks.
Hi, Kathy.
Hello, how you doing?
Good.
Good. So I think you've got our annual report. It shows what we've done during the previous year. One of our biggest achievements last year was getting a permanent stage built in the promenade, and so now our concerts and other things that happen there have a permanent stage. And then we've continued with our Clean and Safe program, which is done through ECTLC, and we have our nighttime security patrols, which are continuing to try to keep private property clear during the evenings. And we have our concerts and car show, which our event season is just starting to kick off. So our car shows start on April 12th, and the concerts, I believe, are the 4th or 5th, whichever that Friday is, the first Friday of May.
Okay. Let me see if there's any questions. No? All right. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Jen, did we receive any comments for this item?
Yes, we have one speaker card from Rich Ryle.
Hello, sir. Welcome.
Bless you for your kindness. Well, first of all, let's review the history of the PBID. First of all, it started prior to 2011. That was the CDC, and of course we know the Supreme Court, California State Supreme Court said you can't have a CDC. So you've got a PBID district that was established to do car shows, which it was doing, and that's how I became involved in my relationship with the PBID. I was working for Charger Steve at the time, providing a subcontracting service for the music. So from that point on, 2003 up until about 3 or 4 years ago, I was working. I knew all about how it was set up. Now, when the PBID was formed, the first thing that I have noticed about it is that we have the same membership, the same leadership. There's no term limits for the PBID. The real problem that I see with that is that they look at it, it's their private little piggy bank. First of all, there is no bidding for the car show. Charger Steve has got a lock on it, and as far as Mike Noble goes, he has a lock on providing the entertainment. Now, they held these meetings, and they've been holding these meetings for the last 10 years since the inception of the PBID in violation of the Brown Act. They don't believe that the public should be attending, and they were under the mistaken impression that in order to be involved in the meeting, you had to be a property owner in the district. I went there. In fact, I rented space in that building specifically so I could go to the meeting so that I could attempt to bid. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized this was a closed shop. There is no open bidding, and that the people that have no term limits at all continue to make money every year off of the PBID. They rent space, they rent office space, storage space, they offset some of their employee costs that way. So there's a real problem with the way they run it. Now, my biggest concern was the Brown Act. I went to them, I told them you're in violation. They said, nope, sorry, we're not. So I got a lawyer. My lawyer, Corey Briggs, says, oh, yeah, they are. Sent them a letter. They said, nope, we're not going to change. We're not going to change. We don't believe we're in violation. We sued them. We had depositions. And, in fact, your financial statements under oath, Ms. Zeman told me that she did not review the financial statements, and she wasn't sure who prepared them. And, in fact, I really wonder who's running the PBID based on my depositions in it. We have settled with them. They have agreed that the Brown Act does apply. So I would ask that you do not accept their report for a number of reasons. One, the report was done without any input from the public. There is no reports in the last year where they were discussing these items so the public has got input to it. Number two, I think it's time for a change. We need to take the Downtown Businessmen Association, thank them for their business, and put it out for bids for other nonprofits. I've talked to the Chamber of Commerce. And if you put up some specifications for it, I think they would do it, and I think they would be a much better fit for running the PBID than this group of people. The deposition itself is an embarrassment about how poorly run it is. But at any rate, I would ask that you do not accept their report and that you look into ways to relieve them of their duties and give it to someone who has term limits. The real reason in this that we have this problem is we have the same people making the same decisions, and because they're in there, they never change. Thank you.
Let me see if there's any questions for you. Questions? I'm just, you bring up the Brown Act.
Yes.
Are you under the belief that we have some jurisdiction in that?
The Brown Act applies to any taxing authority. So if you have taxing...
I agree. I agree with you.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean we have jurisdiction over the PBID in regard to whether or not they're violating the Brown Act or not. Is there something that some action you wanted us to take in regard to that? Because my understanding that would be an FPPC complaint.
Okay. What happened was they have settled with it. Well, we are in the process of settling. They have acknowledged that they have violated the Brown Act, and we are now making sure that they will no longer violate the Brown Act. Okay. So in that respect, I have a small victory for the people.
So that part of the complaint is not an issue today.
That is not no. The issue is the fact that these people have not been termed out, and that they use it like their own piggy bank and they fund their friends. That's what I really find oppressive about it.
Okay, it would be my understanding we also don't have any jurisdiction in whether or not the CDC has term limits.
That's correct. And I would recommend that we shouldn't conflate lawsuit or any critiques of the way they operate with the annual report. We should look at the annual report on its own merit and determine whether this is a plan that you want to move forward with.
Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to unpack this specifically for everybody in the audience, because I don't want to give the impression that we're ignoring something or not dealing with something. It's just we literally don't have any authority.
You have been more than kind to me. You've listened to me politely. And like I said, of all the city councils, and I've appeared before a lot of city councils in my lifetime, I like this one the best. It's friendly, it's real loose, and you guys really care about your city.
So there was thank you, I appreciate that. There's the Brown Act, there was the term limits, and then there was one other, not accepting the report.
Yeah, I don't want you to accept the report. I think you should send it back to them because they didn't prepare the report with any input from the community.
Okay. Any other questions? Steve?
Why would the public be required to provide input to a financial audit?
It's not a matter of requirement. It's a matter of appearances. We should be able to. And that's what we don't have that authority right now. They'd make the decision without putting it out. I've been to many, many boards like this, and they want public input. This particular group, I've never met anyone quite like this group in their attempts to keep the public out of their meetings.
So you're talking about the annual report and the narrative of the performance, not of the financial statements, correct?
The financial statements I'm not really pleased with either, but yeah, you're right. I don't make a big issue. I'm more interested to see how they're going to handle the settlement issue in their financial reports. But right now, the financial reports I don't care about. I'm more interested in the fact that they're not opening it up to the public. And that's the purpose of my involvement in this, is to make sure that the public has knowledge of what their tax dollars are being spent on. Did that answer your question, sir?
Not really.
I'm sorry.
I just need a short answer. Do you accept their financial statements, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I think that's what we are tasked with doing, is to receive the report. Is that correct? Our scope is limited to receiving.
Well, the PBID is established by the city by action, by a vote of the property owners. And the law requires that they present the report annually to the city council for approval. I don't know if exactly it's approval or just receive. But in any event, this is a day set for the public to come to the city council and say whether they agree with it or not. Mr. Reel has said he does not agree with it. And now it's up to you whether you will accept it.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, you're right. This is a time to voice your opinion, so I appreciate that.
Anybody else?
In your time, are there any other businesses or organizations that has come to you with issues?
Yeah, some of the Chaldeans have talked to me about it, and we've all decided. And I brought this up at the chamber meetings, that there are, I think, much better ways to spend the money in promoting the downtown area, and I think that these people have outlived their usefulness. I don't think they've done a very good job, but that's why we have the ability to critique them, and that's what I'm doing. I'm critiquing them.
Okay, thanks, sir. I appreciate it. Was there anybody else that wanted to speak? And then, Graham, I'll get back to you.
No further speaker cards, sir.
Okay, Graham?
So staff would recommend that the council does approve the plan. There are certain things in the establishment of the PBID that we committed to do. For example, economic development with those monies, keeping the area clean, doing economic activities like whether it be a car show or a farmer's market, whatever it is. And we believe that the plan does hit those marks. It does address those issues. And just as a reminder to the council, as part of your goal-setting session of almost a year ago, you established a goal to do an analysis of the PBID and to see if the assessments being collected are being maximized. Are there other opportunities to maximize the benefits of the PBID? As you know, we actually went out to RFP. 2 firms did respond to do the analysis. We selected one of those firms. We recently entered into an agreement with them, and they're currently working on an analysis of the PBID generally. What are some ways, opportunities being missed, opportunities that we're hitting, and that report should be before the City Council in a couple months from now.
That's good to know. One question I have. Let's say that everything the gentleman said was correct, and there's a real big problem with the PBID. How would the public go about rectifying a problem like that? Wanting to change the members of the board, change the bylaws, et cetera?
Well, you look at who are the constituents of the PBID. For example, if I have a complaint about the way that the city of La Mesa City Council is handling themselves, I'm not a jurisdiction. I don't vote in La Mesa. I'm not a constituent of the city of La Mesa. The majority of residents in El Cajon are not constituents of the PBID. It's actually the property owners, not even the business owners. It's the people that own property that are paying the assessment. Those are the ones that have the constituency of the PBID, and that's who we should be making sure it has a voice in making decisions.
Is there an opportunity? So, like we talked about a physician that complained recently about the PBID, and he wanted to redress some of his issues. What is his process for redressing those issues?
So a property owner's redress would be to go before the board of directors of the Downtown Business Partnerships, which we have a membership on as a participating taxing entity. We have an opportunity to have a board member. Mr. DiMaggio is our city representative. He can go before them and express concern. In this case, he asked for his assessment to be reduced. The challenge is that assessment is established by the vote. And so to change that assessment, it would take another vote to do that. But the board of directors could direct the safety team or the clean team to do some other things to help that individual. But that would be the course of action.
Okay, so let's say 90% of the people in the PBID think that something should be changed. But the board of directors of the PBID don't think it should be changed. At what point do those 90% have the ability to change the leadership or change the way things are done to get what they want? How does that happen?
I don't know. I'd have to look at both our management agreement and also the ordinance that established the PBID to see if there's a way to do that. I don't know that. I'd like to
know what the process of that would be.
Well, there is a life to the PBID. It does come up for renewal, so it does come up soon. But I think you're saying if there's a demand for leadership change, how would you effectuate that change?
If people don't like what I'm doing, they can
recall you.
Wait till an election, they can recall me, or they can vote me out.
Correct. I don't know what those options are besides waiting it out, but I'll find out.
All right. And is there any sense, as being members of the PBID, that we don't have the ability to go to meetings and make our voices heard?
I've never heard that before. The meetings, in my experience, are publicly noticed, and people have access to those meetings.
All right. Thanks for answering my questions. Steve.
So to be clear, it's the property owners who have standing in this district.
That's exactly right.
Not lessees, not agents, unless the owner has given a proxy of some kind.
That's correct.
Okay, so property owners. I noticed that the agenda item says to receive, and there's a difference between receive and approve. So I'm okay for receiving it.
I think receiving would be appropriate, but there should be a vote to receive.
Okay. I'm concerned about some of the goals here and things, but this is to receive. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we receive the downtown El Cajon business.
Was there anybody else that wanted to speak? Okay, yeah, please. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Thank you. Okay. Item 7 is a report on America on Main Street 2023. Staff, will you tell us about this, please? And there he is.
Give me a second to get set up.
Have you won any new competitions or awards lately? I kind of live vicariously through you.
I'm running a 4-4-48 in March, sir.
A what?
It's 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Yeah, I do that all the time. That's it? So how did they end with the body surfing competitions?
I haven't done any since last year, when I was ranked 15 in the state, by the way.
Nice.
I was by attrition, though. You know, the more you show up to, the higher you get. It's not that I was any good.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. We good? Hopefully. Let's try this one. I'll just get started with it. So our America on Main Street event will be May 20th, 2023. It's a Saturday. That also happens to be Armed Forces Day, as the previous years. Along with that, we're going with a patriotic theme. We haven't fully embraced which theme, but it's going to be a patriotic theme, being that it is also on Armed Forces Day. As in years past, we've had a pre-event, which is a naturalization ceremony, so we're going to try to continue with that. In our initial talks with the branch of the government that actually operates that, there is interest in that. It's just there's some legwork that we have to go through to get that done. The event will be from 3 p.m. to All right, that's fun. The event will also have Foodie Fest, which is the event within the event, and we're going to have, as previous years, free rides, free games, free attractions. I know that the mayor, as well as council members, like to say that this is a completely free event. Being that there is Foodie Fest, there will be a charge per entry. We're looking at a $20 adult charge per entry, just so we can recover a little cost to pay the vendors to actually come. We're projecting anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500 per restaurant establishment or food service industry to actually show up and give tasters as part of it. We do have 2 new logos. This is the first of the logos. So a little bit different spin from our previous one, a little bit more fun to it. You can see that it kind of shows the pennants, the food, and the music along with America on Main Street. And then we thought it might be good to also add a secondary with a little tagline, so Foodie Fest and Family Fun, just so we can also have that little association from our previous Foodie Fest post-COVID, that event tying into that. There's going to be, let me go back to this slide. So I didn't really talk about it in my write-up, but what we've seen is just like what you see in other industries is a huge spike in costs to rent, especially event equipment, rent generators. So we've had to become very creative. So we've worked with one specific vendor a lot for our events. That is probably like the biggest special event meeting supply vendor. And we're moving away from them just because they are having a hard time finding staff to even be at our event. So we're going to a different vendor. And these are just examples of the rides. So this is one that is like a bungee run. This is just typical air jump. This one's like a cliff dive slide thing. We were going to have the Giddy Up Petting Zoo Ranch there, as well as our traditional naturalization ceremony. We will look to our council members and mayor if they want to speak. That would be a good time as a speaking engagement. We are working with Christensen Amusement Rides to get large-scale amusement rides that will be free also. So we have the Roundup here, as well as potentially a Ferris wheel and a giant slide to go along with it. As in years past, we've had a diverse array of entertainment. So like the Nauru and taiko drummers, they're always very entertaining. It's funny, the actual runs, the 5Ks that I'm doing, I see them playing as I'm running by. I'm like, hey! So they're definitely everywhere. We'll have free face painting. I would recommend, if you don't want to wait 45 minutes, if not longer, come right at 3 p.m. or at the time that we're actually going to have face painting. I want to say it's 3:30 at the actual time for the face painting. This is a picture from our Foodie Fest event, working along with our downtown Elko and business partners. This was their seating area, and talking with Kathy today, also just confirming that we're going to go with patriotic theme. She's going to bring a lot of attractions in her area on that stage at the Prescott Promenade. We're not actually looking at putting Foodie Fest back to the Promenade. We're looking at putting it other locations, potentially down here at the WD Hall, just so that group can break down sooner. So they can be done by 6:30 p.m., those restaurants, and they can get out so they're not stuck. So once it starts getting dark, we'll just have a transition of a crowd there. So really, Foodie Fest would be 3:30 to 6:30, the event within the event. And we're not looking to sell more than 800 tickets for Foodie Fest right now, just because we don't want to have that big of an impact on our food service industry that actually is going to be coming out. So I don't have a fancy map, but this is an example of our internal map that we're working with in terms of our footprint. The big yellow areas are really like the entertainment or the amusement rides type of thing. There are little teeny green squares that you see, that's food related in terms of paid regular food trucks, or Foodie Fest, which you see down at WD Hall. And then we're also partnering with our Public Works Department to showcase what they have. And that'll be down towards Maine and Magnolia. So they're gearing up to be excited about that, and also educate the community about the wide range of the divisions that they support within the city. We'll be working with our fire department and police department, not only provide security, but also have engaging pieces at the event with them as well. With that, I'd take any questions or feedback from council at this time.
Questions?
So to confirm, if you don't want to attend the voluntary Foodie Fest event, there are other food options available.
There are going to be other food options available. That was the direction we received, so that's why we've tried to have Foodie Fest securely down at WD Hall, and then other food options along Main Street where we traditionally have them all as previous events.
And those are pay-as-you-go or
Those are pay-as-you-go,
Okay.
yeah.
So the question comes up now, are we going to have a cookie contest again this year?
I think I will. I don't know yet.
It's
I
whatever
plan
you.
on,
It's whatever you
beating
guys
my-
want to do.
I
That's your activity.
I plan on beating them again this year with my cowboy cookies.
Okay, but
So-
who makes the rules for the cookie judging? Because I got some grief last time that there weren't actual cookies. Some people brought other things. So.
You know what? I got it approved. Everybody agrees.
Okay.
But you know what? I'll stick to regular cookies this year. Someone wants to take me up on the challenge. Yeah, I don't see it.
I tasted her cookies. They're actually really good.
Okay.
More questions? Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it. Jen, did we get any public comments on this?
No speaker cards, sir.
All right. Then I'm trying to think what our action item needs to be here. Just to accept
I think
the
we're
report.
just looking for any feedback and just give you an update. So there's no action required.
From my point of view, it looks like you thought it through, and it seems like it's going to be a great event. Anybody?
No, the naturalization is my favorite part. It's one of the coolest moments. So let's make sure we don't get rid of that. Whatever we got to do, let's make sure we keep it part of the event. I think it just blends so nicely, culminates.
Right. Well, it creates an audience right at the event starts, so that really helps us also.
Yeah.
The one question I wanted to ask, I think I know the answer, but if there are people that don't have the money to spend at the food fest, they can do other things without without spending any.
All rides, attraction, games are all free. Music, entertainment. The only thing that you have to pay for are food and drink.
Okay. Well, thanks, Frank. I appreciate that. Okay, we're set. Thanks.
Sorry, I did have a question. Do we have like tables and I know it's tight packed and it's getting bigger and bigger.
We have a variety. So along Main Street around the food courts, we have what's called belly up, and then also on some grass areas, we have picnic tables as well as other seating along the area. Prescott Promenade, there will also be the concrete seating that they have.
Yeah, it's never enough, but yeah,
Right.
something. Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Appreciate it, Fred. Thank you very much. All right. The fourth administrative report on today's agenda, item 9, is an update on homeless programs and services. And I'll ask staff to tell us about this.
Actually, Mayor, you got the number
miss one?
8, the third item on the administrative report.
Hold on. I got too excited. Okay. Item 8 is an update for the Veterans Memorial, and our staff to tell us about this. And Frank, I see you still standing there, so.
Yes, sir. It's back to back. All right, so this is more of an update for the Veterans Memorial, and it's prelim to next Tuesday's council's workshop that we'll be doing at the Ronald Reagan Center. But we wanted to at least bring this before you before we come to you with more formal recommendations, and so we can get your feedback to provide that formal recommendation to council. So just a quick review. The memorial that you see out here was dedicated on Veterans Day, November 11, 2000, and that was working alongside the American Legion Post 303. That's just a scanned copy of the plaque that they gave us as part of it that we have here at City Hall as a reminder of that dedication, the 5-sided obelisk and the flag. Later on in 2014, the larger flag with the POW MIA flag was added to that in 2014. In our meetings or stakeholder communications that we've had, the staff has had, the first time we came back to council, we got feedback saying that there should be Space Force involved, so 6 branches now. And then later on, late last year in November, one of our meetings with the American Legion Post 303, one member added, and then they all concurred that it would be best if we added a 7th, which would be the United States Merchant Marines. And their recommendation to me in that conversation was, you're not going to be criticized for having it, but you may be criticized for not adding it. So, and they did serve greatly in World War II. That's what those members recommended. So we're recommending 7 branches of the Department of Defense in total capacity. So we have spoken with different members. These are the 501c19, so the veteran service organizations based here in El Cajon listed, as well as we hosted 4 community meetings. Councilmember Goebel and Mitchell came to different ones. Councilmember Goebel kind of sat there and listened to the feedback I was getting, and I think he was happy at the fact that I was getting the feedback at the time, and he could just watch the moment and appreciate. He said something to me afterwards, so yes, it was. These were really good meetings, mostly because it was also educating the public. I was taking feedback from youth, age 6, all the way up to our aging community, just to get feedback from individuals. We had also taken surveys at a variety of the events. So every community meeting that I hosted, we had the surveys. The Veterans Day event, we had surveys. So we collected a total of 154 surveys. 82% knew of one veteran memorial, and I'm going to assume they knew of that one. 14% knew of a second veteran memorial, and if you don't know where that is, it's at the top of Fletcher Hills, right next to Navajo Road on a median, and that was placed there in 1969. I want to say that was the year with Eddie Murphy. He was a POW in North Korea along with everybody on his ship, and they were taken captive as POWs during that time period. So the Fletcher Hills community, working with the city of El Cajon, established that flagpole there. So that's why we have a second Veterans Memorial up there, just to educate council. 96% agree that there should be a new Veterans Memorial. And that's just something that we've learned through community input meetings is you do want to ask, should there be one? Because even though staff think that We sometimes know everything, we don't. And so we do need to get that community input because sometimes maybe people don't want that. So it was good to see that 96% agreed that we should have a new Veterans Memorial. I might have had a skewed survey just because we were targeting veteran community when we were taking these as well as community members. In talks primarily with different groups, there was recommendations, the Reyes Circle that you see the roundabout down here, something in the middle of that was suggested. We have something right here in Centennial Plaza, so next to the one that we have, but more in the Centennial Plaza area. Prescott Promenade has been brought up by one Veterans Coalition member, very vocally about it. It's been recommended by staff, one staff member, or two staff members, Judson Park, where you see the gazebo there on Park and Magnolia, like right by that potentially. Something at Parkway Plaza, a public-private cooperative agreement there. I don't want to say partnership. Or also the public safety building right here in front in El Cajon. I did mention in the report, I was pretty specific about this. So you have the 4 501c19s at the Chambers Street address, the Veterans Memorial Hall. And I wrote in my report that they are more internally focused, and I'm not criticizing them at all. They're just more internally focused for their members, and that's what their focus is. And we've met with, and this is Mark Goodman. He's the post commander of American Legion Post 303. He's also the 2019 Veteran of the Year for El Cajon, so I wanted to remind you of who he is in that photo. But in talking with them, I've met with them 4 times, and I know Councilmember Ortiz and I need to meet with them one more time to get a little bit more input. But we ran through all the potential locations, and even more so, and they like the location that's in front of Public Safety Building the most. They are the ones that use the current Veteran Memorial for their gatherings on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, as well as other times. They're that group. They're the ones that are externally focused. So their input had the greatest impact on me. Our Veterans Coalition that is part of the City of El Cajon, their impact also does and continues to have impact on staff, but it's not a consistent voice. There are different members, so different members see things differently, and they have very strong viewpoints on things. So I have to be a little bit more balanced on how I do that. But at the end of the day, I have to also look at who's the end user, who's using it, and it is going to be the American Legion Post 303. I want the other groups to do it, but they also are more internally focused. So I have to go, okay, who do I need to make sure I express the feedback to council? So the American Post 303, they really like the fact that it's accessible for ADA accessibility. They like that there's a parking lot right next to it, and that it can be safe and seen. That's the biggest thing. From this point, feedback and next steps. So I would like to get some level of feedback from council today, if we could, and even potentially next week at the workshop, if it was good timing for that. From there, staff would come back with a formal recommendation after a few more meetings with some stakeholders. We still need to meet with the Chamber of Commerce, their VECA group as well. But staff would like to come back at some point with a formal recommendation once we receive all the feedback and we get feedback from you before we come to you with a formal recommendation. We know that there's going to be individuals that are not going to be happy no matter what is recommended, and that's what we also have to express to council. We will at some point, either this fiscal year or next fiscal year, start seeking requests for proposals and qualifications. Also get further input once we start going down that road from our Veterans Coalition on design, greater veteran community input on design, then come back to council also for this is the input we have. What is your recommendation for staff? And then finally, we'll need to seek funding sources for this.
All right, Frank, thank you. Questions?
Oh, comment. If that's okay. Yeah, Frank, I just want to publicly thank you, Frank, for taking the time and care in soliciting advice and input from all these different groups. I mean, it was a large task, and I think it's important to note that when these groups are giving their input, they're thinking about their friends and buddies that they lost overseas, or the family members that were lost. And so there's going to be a lot of emotions and a lot of opinions and things like that. And I just want to thank you for the care that you've taken in approaching each organization multiple times and receiving that input, because it is a sensitive topic, and it's not just about a statue. It's not just about the memorial. When people are talking about this, they're thinking about their loved ones. And so I really appreciate the time and attention you've taken to it. So I just want to say that publicly. I think, we want to definitely meet with VECA. That's a huge group of veterans that's kind of sprouted in the last year. And there's a lot of other organizations in the community that are attached to it. Also business owners, veteran-owned businesses that are attached to VECA as well. I know Tour Knives is a veteran-owned business. He only hires veterans, and he's right here in the city, and they attend that meeting. So there's a lot of... I know you've gone through the marathon, that you're used to doing marathons physically, but not like this. But I think meeting with VECA is another one. But yeah, the next steps you've proposed, I think, are fantastic, and I would agree. The best spot, in my opinion, might be in front of the public safety building. Everything else, it seems like there's too many variables. And for reasons that we've already discussed, you want to make sure that you're giving the memorial the amount of respect that it deserves, so it's not in parks where people can desecrate it or just kind of not show that. You want the environment to be kind of like a cemetery. I mean, I know when I go to the World War II Memorial when I went to it in Washington, D.C., there's a ranger there, and there was someone kind of jumping around, and he kind of went over there and said, hey, let's maintain a level of respect. And I think we can maintain that level of respect over by the public safety building. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I agree with my colleague to thank you for the effort to put into it. I know that you sat in those community rooms going, come on, do you want a free donut? And so it does take a lot of work. I also agree with Mr. Ortiz that we need to work with VECA because they have some great ideas. And when it comes to a funding source, like I have told VECA, and I will tell you publicly that if we were to put together a benefit concert, and I've talked to Mr. Mitchell about this, that I have a direct link to the Lieutenant Dan Band, Gary Sinise. My neighbor's son was his drummer. So we've got a band that, will draw crowds, and that would help with raising money. Just to name drop. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Any comment cards on this?
No speaker cards were received, sir.
Okay. Well, I think they're looking for some direction. Frank is.
Yeah, I would just say it seems like we've had multiple meetings about this. You have the right vision. I would say let's finish up the meetings, and then we can start soliciting for input with regard to your other points, design and whatnot, and then we can go out for RFP and complete the mission. Carry on.
I think next week will be a good opportunity to discuss this a little bit more in detail.
Yes, sorry, Bill. I don't think we're going to be able to use your band for the benefit concert. I think the Lieutenant Dan Band's got you beat.
Well, I have legs. So.
And then we just need a motion to accept the report.
I'll make that motion.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Actually, that band is really good. That's one of my favorite movies ever. Make it happen. That'd be great. I will definitely come. And I would love to meet Gary Sinise. All right. Next, item 9. Okay. The fourth administrative report on today's agenda is item 9, an update on homeless programs and services, and I'll ask staff to tell us about this. Hello.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Jose Dorado, Housing Manager in the Community Development Department here at the City of El Cajon. This afternoon, we'll be providing the homeless programs and services update from the last 6 months. I would like to introduce Yanni Pelayo Brito, Housing Specialist, who will provide today's update. Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. As Jose mentioned, I will be presenting on the homeless programs and services that the city is engaged in to address homelessness. This report will cover a 3-year period from January 2020 to December 2022. Since January 2020, the city has allocated approximately $4,055,000 using multiple funding sources. These funding sources include low and moderate income housing, CDBG CARES Act funding, and general fund for the various programs and services that you see here in this slide. In previous reports, we have not included Crisis House. However, they are contractually obligated to assist El Cajon victims of domestic violence and homeless for a 10-year period. This is due to City Council approval of one-time funding of $700,000 in CDBG funds back in November of 2020. Staff is including amounts of clients served through Crisis House in the last 6 months with this report, and will continue to do so for future reports as well. This table shows expenditures and results for each of our active programs for the last 6 months. A total of $399,477 were expended from July to December of 2022. During that time, 957 individuals were assisted, and out of that total, 68 individuals were permanently housed. This graph shows the number of clients that were permanently housed and served by 2 of the city programs. That's a Way Back Home program provided by the Salvation Army, and the El Cajon Housing Assistance Program provided by Home Start. So in the past 6 months, a total of 44 individuals were permanently housed, and together these programs have provided permanent housing for 204 individuals since January 2020. As a result of the data provided today, staff recommends that City Council continue funding the active programs shown on this slide. And with that, I conclude my presentation. Staff welcomes any council feedback, and Jose and I will be available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Michelle, start with you.
And I don't know if you have the answer to this. Do you know what the biggest obstacle is for getting people permanently housed?
Requirements?
So some of the obstacles are the challenges of being able to sustain permanent housing. So, housing costs here in our city are high. So having to be able to tie them with all the resources that they need in order to sustain that permanent housing, that's one of the challenges based on the housing costs.
So is it the availability of a place to live that's within their means? Is it not having the means? So it's just basically all of that?
It's essentially all of that. Also, you factor in the household size. So if it's a family of 4, there's some challenges there versus a single person that can probably live in a room or be a roommate to somebody.
Sure. So what is being done to compile a list of housing sources? Are we contacting landlords? Are we contacting apartment complexes to try and negotiate lower rent? Or, I don't know if that's our place at all, but I mean, if housing availability is an issue, then, are we proactively trying to make it, to kind of give them that little help? Because, Section 8 is a 20-year waiting list. And I understand that there are those that come in from another program that gets housing assistance or Section 8 much quicker, within weeks or months, versus those who have been waiting 10 to 20 years. And so I know that housing is a big issue here in El Cajon. Everybody's looking for room to rent. Everybody's looking for apartments to rent. And these are just people who are already working, not to mention those that are trying to come out of being unhoused and then going into a situation. So what are some of the... We're sort of like the clearinghouse, is that... And you may not have these answers.
We're actually not the clearinghouse. That's not the role of the city. We do contract with Homestart.
Right.
Through our housing navigator. It's the wrong title now. But that's one of the things that they do, is they do help find those opportunities. And it's not an El Cajon issue. It's a San Diego region issue. There's a lack of housing in San Diego County, or the ability to secure housing in San Diego County. So unless we were to massively increase staff and give landlords monetary incentives to reduce rent through subsidies, we don't have the means to do that.
Okay. I was just kind of curious. And really, 68 in permanent housing, that's awesome. That's 68 people that have gotten permanent housing. And I know that there are so many more that need that permanent housing, but that's... it just takes baby steps to go through it. And I appreciate you guys compiling all of this. It's a great report. And, I think we're doing a wonderful job here in El Cajon in getting these services out there and working with different organizations, more so than, let's just say, San Diego. And even though our numbers may not be as big as San Diego's, I think our success rate is at a much higher percentage. And it's something that everybody that is involved, all the organizations that you are in contract with or in connection with, your staff, needs to be commended, because this is not an easy job. And I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Can you go back to the slide that had like $457,000 and nine? Yeah, let that sink in for a second. So we're essentially saying the last 6 months we spent $400,000 and we've helped 1,000 people. So that's an average cost of $400 a person, if my math is right. 400,000 divided by 1,000. I think that's $400 a person. That's pretty doggone good in today's world for things. You know what? I would add one more item to this list. It's a pet project of mine, and that's the Meridian Cabins. We did provide $25,000 of assistance there. And then on an ongoing basis, we provide rehousing, rapid rehousing things for first and last and deposits and things. Let me tell you some news I got on Saturday from Pastor Slade there. He said, we have 3 ladies in cabins 4, 5, and 6. 2 ladies are rehoming their dogs, cabins 1 and 3. So they just have 1 vacancy of the 6 cabins. In cabin 2, they have 4 children, ages 3 to 8. He says it has been a slow start, lots of lessons learned. One little girl said, "Thank you for my special bed." Another girl said, "I don't want to leave." So it's a very effective additional menu item in the solutions for homelessness. Not everybody can function in a congregate care setting like a tent or an ECTLC where there's a lot of people around. This is 1 person, 1 cabin. And man, I hope we can get this message out to other people. I did some math with the city manager. I said, if a site like a church or a VA facility or a Masonic temple or a landowner, if they got $1,000 a month per cabin, and in this case, there's 6 cabins. So if they got $6,000 a month, if we had 1,000 people in San Diego get $1,000, that would be $1 million a month in rent that we would pay times a year would be $12 million. I can tell you we spend way more than $12 million a year countywide for 1,000 people for housing. We know that some of the short-term 28-day programs are over $4,000 a month for those. So this is, I think we would get a whole lot more takers, landowners saying, put 6 of those on my property if I'm going to get $6,000 a month. And I am going to lobby my friends down at the county for what I think is a very cost-effective and clearly meaningful solution. So it is another effective tool that El Cajon has that no other city is doing for the efficiency of the dollars that we're spending. So, and that's because of all of our partners. We've got a great team of partners. So, well done.
Anybody else?
Just to put a cherry on Councilman Goebel's comments, I think the strategy that El Cajon has adopted for years in partnering with nonprofits to maximize public funds, I think is the right way to go. Because if the city were to just hire city employees to administer all of these programs, the cost would rise astronomically. And so really the heroes here are our partners and nonprofits that are experts in helping people get off the street and into permanent housing and being able to maximize those dollars. So I think as long as the city and other cities would look at El Cajon as an example as to how to maximize funds and maximize results, I think, the state of California would be in a lot better of a situation. Mr. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, I was, Jose Yanni, I had an opportunity to attend a meeting yesterday at the San Diego Rescue Mission, and it's obvious from the crowd there that El Cajon is looked to as a leader in this area because of our success and the dedication that the City Council has given to this. This is something that's clearly not just words or bullet points or speaking points. This is something that's passionate to the City Council, and it shows by the programs that we offer. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done this last 6 months, as well as with our partners or our contractors who have just been phenomenal. Really appreciate them. One of the things that Mr. Goebel asked about, and he reminded me that our homeless reaction program is more than just helping get people off the street. We do a lot of work at enforcement of illegal activity, and we did not have time to get some information about that into this report, but in future reports we'll include information about some of our enforcement activities that have occurred, and we're very proactive with it, and we think it's one of the reasons why we're successful at the back end of helping people get into permanent housing. I think you have to have both in order to have an effective way to deal with this. Lastly, it's something that the mayor and I have talked a lot about. It's something that he's very vocal about, is that our region has no leadership in the area of homelessness when it comes to drug addiction and mental health. And until you deal with those things, that having affordable housing is one thing, but the ability, and as Mr. Dorado says, the ability to sustain that housing is predicated on the ability to have a job and earn a wage and to pay rent or a mortgage, right? And we have so many individuals that are living on the street that do not have that capacity to do that because of drug addiction or because of mental incapacity. And until we address those things, the idea of just beating the fact of lack of home opportunities is irrelevant. And so it's something that I know that our community has been talking about. It's something that I hope that we can continue to talk about and continue to be a leader in this area.
Thank you, Graham. Appreciate that. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards were received, sir.
All right. I'd like to just make a motion then to accept the report.
Second.
Please vote. Our next item is the Nurse Navigator Program, and I'd like to ask our city.
Mayor and Michelle still need to vote.
Manager, tell us about this.
We need to check on the vote again. I think the deputy mayor and Ms. Mitchell need to vote. Maybe we'll clear it and try again.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And then you'll allow the deputy city clerk to announce
All right,
the vote.
on the previous item, the motion was moved and seconded. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
All right, thank you very much. Chief Coe, you're going to tell us about the Nurse Navigator program.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I'm here to provide you with an update on the El Cajon Community Care Program. I would like to recognize Division Chief Jay Winowski. He has worked closely on this project and is one of our technical experts on the program. So as a recap, in March of this past year, the City Council approved spending $300,000 to implement a new nurse navigation pilot program in El Cajon. The city and Heartland Fire and Rescue partnered with American Medical Response to create this innovative program. I am happy to report that the El Cajon Community Care Program, or the Nurse Navigator Program, is fully developed and will begin on Monday, January 31st. This makes the city the first city in California and only the first of 18 cities across the nation to integrate nurse navigation into its 911 system. The El Cajon Community Care Program aims to provide callers with the right level of care for their medical condition. If a 911 caller has a life-threatening emergency or a potentially life-threatening emergency, an ambulance will be dispatched just as they've always been. If it's not an emergency, let's say a sprained ankle, a cough, a low-level grade fever, then callers will be transferred to a nurse navigator, a California licensed nurse who will work with the caller to determine an appropriate path for treatment and assist them in customizing treatment to meet their specific medical needs. The 911 caller may be referred to a local clinic, urgent care, or a telehealth physician depending on their specific needs. Nurse Navigator can also help to arrange transportation with Lyft to and from appointments and even refill prescriptions at no cost to the resident. This program has the potential to reduce the number of ambulances dispatched for non-life-threatening medical needs. By customizing and right-sizing the medical response, the taxpayers and callers have the potential to reduce the overall cost of a call while freeing up emergency medical personnel to respond to other life-threatening emergencies. I would like to thank retired Fire Chief Steve Swaney for bringing this program to the city for consideration, and thank the mayor and the council for funding this pilot program. I would also like to recognize the work put into this program by our fire department staff, Heartland Fire Dispatch Center, AMR, Nurse Navigation, San Diego County EMS, and the city manager's office. This is truly a team effort. And that concludes my brief update. I'm available for any other questions that you may have about the program.
Thanks, Chief Coe. Let me see if there's any questions. Michelle?
Just out of curiosity, how would, if a resident were to fall and they don't necessarily, they've fallen in an area that they can't, family members can't pick them up, and so generally that becomes a 911 call, but they don't really need medical system. How would the nurse navigator, or how would that call be handled?
And it would still have to go through a triaging process.
Okay.
If there's nobody else to help them up, on the fire department side, we do provide public assistance. So if there's nobody else to help them up, we would potentially still respond, but we would not respond code 3. We would not necessarily bring an ambulance. We're still there to serve the public and help them out.
Okay, because we have a lot of senior citizens that sometimes they fall. They don't necessarily, they're not injured, but, the husband or the wife can't get them up. Neighbors are not available or able to pick them up. And it's very helpful to have the fire department being able to assist and, get them up off the floor if the patient is, on the larger side.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
AMR is the owner of the Nurse Navigator resource, right? That's their
AMR is a part of, it's actually Global Medical Response,
Global
GMR.
Medical.
So Nurse Navigator and AMR are both owned by Global Medical Response.
Okay. So there's this level of experience and excellence that has existed already. It's not a brand new company starting up.
Right, absolutely.
Now, what if somebody calls? I think I heard you say that the person has the option not to be transferred to the Nurse Navigator. What happens then?
Correct. If the person who calls opts out, they don't want to be transferred to Nurse Navigator, then we're going to just continue on following the matrix through a regular 911 triaging system.
Sounds good. So I think I heard you say that the key here is by getting the right level of care, the result is we're getting faster care for true life-threatening emergencies.
Yes, sir. And really we're looking at a holistic approach. We want to get the right level of care, the right resources, and so the people who don't necessarily need to go to the emergency room and sit in a waiting room, be frustrated, they can get the care they need to get.
And I believe I've heard some figures say that this will help 3,000 to 6,000 of the 16,000 annual calls in better assessing their true needs to get the right level of care. Is that right?
That's what we're extrapolating right now.
That's a lot of calls
Yes.
that you're responding today that might be better triaged and a better fit for service.
We're really excited about it and looking forward to seeing what the results.
I think it's just even better for the people in El Cajon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Fantastic program. So walk me through the conversation. Let's say I call 911 and it's not what I describe to the 911 operator, which is local, is not to their knowledge, is not a life-threatening emergency, because obviously the dispatcher is not a nurse. They're not a medical professional that holds any degrees. So walk me through how do they navigate? Would you like to speak to a nurse? How does that conversation happen?
I'm going to bring up Division Chief Wanowski, but so he can provide a little more expertise.
Yeah.
Even though the call takers in our dispatch center are not nurses, they do have medical training.
Okay.
So they do go through a medical triage process. And based on the questions that get asked and answered, they will make the decision if it's appropriate call to go to nurse navigation or if it's going to stay with the 911 system.
Okay, great. Well, that answered my question. Yeah, thanks, Jay, for coming up. Just wanted to stretch your legs. No, okay, so that makes sense. So they do have some background, and if it's determined that it's not emergency, let's say I just have really bad stomachache because I have the flu, and I just need to go to the doctor, but someone's saying I'm dying because my stomach hurts so bad. At that point, our dispatcher would say, well, let's get you over to a nurse, and you can describe symptoms, and then we can determine whether we need to send someone code 3 to you or not. Is that kind of the conversation how it would go?
Correct. If it's determined that it is a level of emergency that does not meet 911 criteria, then they get transferred over to nurse navigation.
Awesome.
And then the nurses will follow up with additional questioning and determine what the next level of service is going to be, what's going to be appropriate, whether it's going to be a follow-up doctor's appointment, whether it's going to be lower level transportation assistance, or whatever it might be, in a potentially telehealth appointment. So the nurses will determine what's going to be the most appropriate level at that point. And if any point in time it is determined that it's still a 911 emergency, and the call gets automatically rerouted back to the 911 system.
Our dispatch. Outstanding. And I know this goes back to one of the projects that we talked about with our immigrant community, newcomers not knowing what 911 is used for, and this is a great way to educate and make sure that we're applying the appropriate level of care. So, fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we depend a lot on mutual aid, especially in eastern El Cajon. Are they all dialed in with this too, or does this affect any of their operations? Or
So as of right now, it would be behind the scenes. It wouldn't affect them other than potentially the call volume that our 911 responses are seeing. So if we're getting those numbers down, there's definitely potentially an effect on our neighbors coming in and helping us out, because we would have more resources available.
Which should be reduced mutual aid need, which means a faster response because we're closer.
Correct.
And available. That sounds good to me.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Do want to mention this is the first program in the state, right?
The first in the state, although Mr. Foley whispered over to me that I guess the city of San Diego is looking at this too. Again, El Cajon in the lead.
Well, San Diego can be second if they want. So.
We'll allow it.
Okay. Thanks very much. Okay, then. Any comments on this?
No speaker cards were received, sir.
Okay. Well, again, we were just looking for a motion then to accept the report.
So moved.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Thank you. All right, our last administrative report, item 11, is the 2022 annual pension status report. And Clay is here. He will tell us all about this, I'm sure.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council. My name is Clay Shane. I'm the Director of Finance for the City of El Cajon. I'm here today to present the 2022 Pension Status Report. A few years ago, the City Council adopted a pension funding policy. As part of that policy, it requires that staff present an annual pension review to the City Council. Specifically, the staff is required to present a summary of each of the two plans' funding status, present the new amortization levels. We need to do this publicly and address any recommendations at that time. So jumping right in, this is a chart that I'm sure you have seen before. It's one of my favorites. It's a 20-year history of CalPERS investment returns. This is through fiscal year 2021, which is the last year considered in the actuarial valuations that this report is based on. For that fiscal year, CalPERS had quite tremendous investment returns of approximately 21.3% in that period. That exceeded the 7% investment target by quite a large sum. What's noteworthy in this year, this is also the year that we issued $147 million of pension obligation bonds. If the story was to end here, we'd all go home patting ourselves on the back. We issued POBs and gave it to CalPERS, and they made blockbuster returns, and everyone feels good about that. However, the story does not end with 2021, and what's not included on this chart or in the valuations that we're presenting information from today is CalPERS' equally blockbuster investment losses in 2022. As they add that year onto the right side, it'll drop the year on the left off, and it's kind of coincidental that in 2002, CalPERS reported an investment loss of negative 6.1%, and that is the same loss they experienced in 2022. So to visualize it, you're pretty much picking up the bar on the left and putting it on the right, and that's what next year's version of this report will look like. What's noteworthy about this is the 2021 returns are the largest CalPERS returns in the 20 years shown here, and the returns from last year, 2022, are the second worst in that 20-year period, too. So the pendulum has swung mightily over the last couple of years as far as CalPERS goes. This all impacts the status of the two funds. The report on the agenda presents both plans individually. However, I do combine them here for the sake of conversation. Frequently, we talk about the unfunded liability, and that's an important number to consider. However, it really is a residual value between the total liability and the total assets in the plans. The total liability are the benefits that have been promised to past and current employees up to this point. Total assets are those monies set aside to fund those assets. Most of those liabilities, significantly between the 2 years, 2020 and 21, assets have increased dramatically, and that's where you're seeing the influx of the bond money, the $147 million POB money, as well as the investment returns. And as a result, you can see considerable progress in the unfunded liability dropping from $226 million to $24 million over those years. In fact, the funding status improves dramatically from 62.7% to 96.3% over that span. However, it's very important to remember that this is information from the CalPERS valuations and does not include the POB liability. At that June 30th, 2021 date, the city still had the full pension or POB liability outstanding, the $147 million. So truthfully, we probably want to consider that unfunded amount closer to $170 million. Still a significant improvement from the previous year, but not on the order of $200 million. A revised funding status would be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 73% with that taken into consideration. As far as the new amortization levels, 6 levels were added during the 2021 valuation. I'd like to run through these because it's not very often that we have them all in a single year. The first one, the assumption change. Every few years, CalPERS goes in and evaluates the assumptions it's making going into the plan. These are forward-looking assumptions going out in many cases several decades as far as life expectancy, retirement dates, years of service, when people enter the system. All of those are periodically reevaluated and adjusted to make sure they're as accurate as possible. And when they make changes to these assumptions, it will either increase or decrease our liability as a result. In this case, that evaluation increased our liability by $2.6 million in the safety plan. The next two are very, very common. You see these in almost every single actuarial valuation we experience. One is investment gains and losses, and that's exactly what it sounds like. That is the amount of money that CalPERS investments make above or below the target amount. I'll come back to this in just a moment. The next line, non-investment gains and losses, are every other adjustment to the plan during that period. And these are things from covered payroll either exceeded or was less than anticipated, more people were hired or retired during that period. Those things are what's happening within the period. So there's a very strong relationship between the first and third. The first, pretty much those same assumptions going out for the next 50, 60, 70 years perhaps. And then the third one is what really happened with those assumptions in that year. And in this case, it increased our liability by approximately $1.3 million. The very unique component of these levels are the next two, the ones that include the risk mitigation term. CalPERS developed a plan several years ago, a risk mitigation plan, and the significant component of that plan was in years that they experienced significant investment gains, they would take those windfall earnings and use it to offset a drop in the discount rate. And that's what you're seeing between the two, those two lines. The risk mitigation line, CalPERS dropped the discount rate from 7% to 6.8%. That brought with it a price tag of approximately $9 million. and they offset that with some of the excess investment gains. And as you can see, by 2023, they zero each other out. So realistically, we should look at the total investment gain and loss line and the risk management offset as the total investment gain that exceeded their target amount. The criticism of this action, of course, was happening while we were coming off of COVID and things were quite unstable. I think they remain fairly unstable. And as you can see in what has happened in the following year with the investment losses we've experienced, kind of not letting them offset a little bit by taking advantage of that. So there were a lot of critics of that decision, but it was passed by the CalPERS board. And lastly, there was only one line added to the miscellaneous plan for 2021, and this was kind of interesting. It was, I'll be truthful, a little bit unexpected for me. The investment gains were so strong for that plan, it virtually wiped out whatever remaining unfunded liability there was for that year. You'll see what I mean in the next slide. But that basically was, there wasn't enough in that plan to work with as far as amortization levels to line them all out, so they sort of scrapped them all, put them all together on a single line, and they used the term fresh start to describe that when that happens. So overall, those are the 6 amortization bases that changed our unfunded liability in the 2021 valuation reports. This slide details the expected contributions over the next 5 years. This, of course, is according to the 2021 valuation. That column titled Required Contribution is really the only for sure component of this slide. This is basically the bill for next year's budget. The unfunded liability is approximately $5.2 million. This is significantly less than the amounts we anticipated last year when we were doing our long-term projections, largely because of those investment gains. Approximately $4 million better than we thought it was going to be last year. This perhaps will give us an opportunity to do something more in the plan. One other thing I'd like to point out while we're here is to make the distinction between the normal cost and the UAL payment. Normal cost is the component, or the cost, the price tag, if you will, of the benefits that are being earned in the current period. If the actuarial just nails absolutely everything, the benefit being earned in that year should be in the case of safety for next year, should be 21.6% of covered payroll. In other words, a police officer or firefighter earns $1 to pay for that benefit they're earning. It should cost the city 21.6 cents. Miscellaneous, same idea there. The UAL, however, is a demonstration of when they don't get it quite right and the accumulation of that over time. The normal cost is typically expressed as a percentage of payroll because it's happening now and going forward, whereas the UAL is paying for those past benefits. I say that the required contribution is really the only thing that's known for sure here. The investment returns losses for 2022, they'll be expressed in the next valuation report and will influence those amounts for 2025 through 2028. So they don't really have a whole lot of value, but it does kind of demonstrate how close we were to finally getting to zero in the miscellaneous plan. Had 2022 come in on target, we would have made a final UAL payment next year for the miscellaneous plan. However, that is not the case. Talking about the investment returns from 2022, just to give you an idea of the size of the impact of that, of the plan assets at the end of 2021, the $615 million, if they earned the targeted amount, it should have earned approximately $42 million or so of interest income for the plan. With a negative 6.1 loss, they were upside down or lost $30 million or so of that. So between being the lack of the targeted income as well as the loss, it's a funding shortfall of somewhere in the neighborhood of $70, $80 million that we will have rolled into our unfunded liability next year. Part of the pension funding policy addresses the idea of the allocation of additional resources. It states, to the extent that the city has excess reserves, surplus, savings from other pension-related strategies, or receives significant one-time revenues, city shall endeavor to apply a portion of such monies towards its unfunded retirement costs in the form of additional discretionary payments. This issue continues to be a major issue for the city of El Cajon. I think it's inevitable that we will have that discussion of additional discretionary payments. However, to conclude today's report, we have some concerns about action at this time. Clearly, the 2021 valuation on which this information is based only includes the very rosy investment gains of 2021. It does not include the 2022 investment losses. These will not be picked up in an actuarial valuation until the 2022 valuation is released later this year. And because of that, there still being so many blanks and unknowns, we're recommending no action at this time. However, before we return in the fall, we may take another bite at that. That concludes our report for today. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions? Steve?
You know, what would be helpful also, I think, in future reports is on another section for payments. Because we did all these bonds. We had a big schedule for the next 20 years, and we said the payments go down by this much per year. And it would be helpful to know, so how close did we come to hit that target? You're saying in one case we beat the target by $4 million, less of a payment than we had projected. I think that's the kind of thing that typical El Cajon resident would say, so how much of your general fund goes towards pensions? And I think it's 25 cents roughly on the dollar today of the general fund, but this was on the asset side. I think we'd like to see something on so how does it hit our budget side, good or bad?
Almost along the same lines. My thought was, in the report, maybe creating a timeline and saying, had we not issued pension obligation bonds, here's where we would have been, as opposed to now where, just this past year, we gained 10% about, I think is what you said, based off of the $147 million plus the existing, I think it was a 10%. You said if you go back to the chart with the percentages, I think in 1 year we went up. Yeah, there we go. So we were at, the status was at 62.7%. Now it's saying 96.3%. But if we add the 147, you're saying we're at probably around 73% now. So that's an actionable, that's what I'm taking away, is we jumped 10% in 1 year, which is fantastic. But also to show where we would have been had we not acted, to show, it seems like we're trying to climb a mountain and you're not going to get through this financial mountain in one step. It's like the analogy, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so if we can show where we came and where we're going, to Steve's point, and show what we had not done, I think the El Cajon residents might be able to digest that a little bit easier, because they're going to eat a whole elephant with all this information. So,
well, both of those requests are requests for information that are readily available, so there shouldn't be any reason in including those next time we're in front of you.
As a reminder, we're coming up on our mid-year budget review, and so one of the things that Mr. Shane talked about is that there was a savings, we were expecting to be paying more in pension costs. There's some value in continuing to make a higher payment, because that's part of your policy that you adopted, and so we'll be bringing forward some ideas at that mid-year budget time, not tonight, but at that moment.
More questions? Thank you, Clay. Any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards were received for this.
All right, I'm just looking for a motion to accept the report.
So moved.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
There are no commission reports on today's agenda. Item 12 is my activity report, which is as reported. We're now at the activity reports of council members. Deputy Mayor Steve Goebel.
As reported.
Council Member Mitchell.
As reported.
And Council Member Ortiz.
They're as reported. Thank you.
There are no joint council member reports, no general information items, no first or second readings of ordinances, and no closed session on today's agenda. So this brings us to adjournment. The adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 24th day of January 2023, is adjourned until Tuesday, January 24th, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you all very much. See you this evening.